Good morning. It's April 19th. I got an echo somewhere.
They don't hear it.
We're here for the 27th memorial of the fire at Mount Carmel. And it's hard to believe that so much time has gone by. Our plans this year were kind of interrupted. We had made arrangements to use the Helen Marie Taylor Museum downtown and had the green light on it for a while. And then Helen Marie Taylor called me and said that the city was digging up all around the museum. They were putting curbs and so forth in, and she begged me to call it off. And all the universities and so forth were closing down, and so initially I made the decision that we wouldn't have a memorial, but I got pressure from a number of people that wanted to do something about it, and so Eddie Oliver, David Thibodeau, and Catherine Wessinger have kind of put this together. It's kind of out of my league. I'm not a computer buff or familiar with all of these programs, but I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. We need to remember what the day is all about. It's not about the coronavirus. It's not about everything else, all our pet peeves or whatever. This is just in remembrance of those who died 27 years ago. And so we need to focus on that. And I'm just glad that everybody that is on could be on. I apologize to those that aren't on board because not everybody has a computer. Not everybody knew about this last minute adjustment that we put together. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Wessinger, who I believe has a message from Sheila, and we'll go from there. Okay. Kathy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Yes, so I talked to Sheila and she wishes she could be here. And she sends her love to everyone. And those of you who don't know Sheila Martin, of course, is one of the survivors. And she lost her husband, Wayne Martin, and her 4 oldest children in the fire. And so she sends her love to everyone. And I have a quotation from Sheila that she wants me to share with you. So this is Sheila speaking. Sheila says, "I'm thankful that God is here for all of us. I am comforted in his promises." So that's Sheila's message for the memorial today. So thank you.
David, do you want to say something at this point?
Sure, I've been, I have to take it off mute. I've been thinking that, yeah, you have to be Clive. Clive and I are in the same room, short a computer, so we're all doubling up here. Wow, that's really, sorry about that, guys. When we did the practice runs, we didn't actually have 2 computers in the same room. So I've been thinking a lot about, the events that took place 27 years ago. And, as Clive says, it's about, all the people that were there. And we did a test run where we read through all the names. And I had, I got to relive all those people individually through that test run and have a little time to kind of reflect on them, especially, the kids that I was close with, Isaiah Joseph, of course, Serenity was very close with. And just, I wondered what they would be now if this had never happened, if this was handled the way it should have been handled. What would Serenity be doing right now? She'd be in her 30s, she'd be 30. These kids could have gone on and had great lives and great careers, and they're no longer with us out of arrogance, basically. And so I just wish that they had had the chance to have their lives. When Clive was reading the names, she's talking, Peter Hipsman, of course, came up, and I started to think of some of the funny things Peter would do. And Scott Shinobi, and I remember a time that we were all in that we built the gym area. And when we first built the gym area, we kind of had what David called the beer bus, where everyone got 3 beers, and someone put on Thriller, and I remember Scott Shinobi doing like the zombie and dancing around to Thriller, and just everyone was having a good time, and seeing all my friends laugh and smile, and that was awesome. It was they were all very, very much individuals. They were all very, very good people that were trying to know God, wanted to know God, wanted to be closer with God, and wanted to serve their fellow man. These are the people that went out and worked every day on building that house that you saw. They worked in the Texas heat. We worked when it rained, and together as a community, built that place in just under a few months. The huge building that you've seen from all the pictures. And I was reflecting the other day on the go-karts and some of the guys getting together and driving around the property of Mount Carmel, and the kind of just, fun that we used to have doing that together and bonding together as a group. And I miss them all very much. As Sheila said in her statement that was read by Kathy, we hope we hope with our faith that they're where they need to be now, and that they're happy, and they've been taken away from this world, from the experiences, the good and the bad experiences that we have to face every day, and that they're having their experience in another dimension, waiting for us all to join them someday, because eternity is just that. It's eternity. This life is a springboard to something greater, I believe, and we're all going to cross that threshold someday. I just hope that they're all, wherever they are, happy. And to the survivors, some of the kids, we got Scott with us today. We have Heather with us today. I just wish for you to have happy lives, and just realize that the people at Mount Carmel had incredible faith. They died for their faith, and to me, that makes them all very, very special individuals. All stars in the universal sky, as far as I can see, and we miss them very much. I think I'm not going to get political. That's all I really wanted to say.
I just interject here that quite a few people have contacted me by phone, wondering what we were going to be doing this year. Paul Fatter from California was curious about it. Connie from Kansas, several others, Mary Winborn down in Corpus Christi. And I know that everybody is interested in what's going on and how we're doing and so forth. And likewise, we're interested in how you all are doing, all the ones that are scattered around the world. Ron and I took a trip to Australia last year, and got to see Oliver's family, his mother and father, and we also saw Graham Craddock. We also went across to New Zealand and saw Grace and Poya. They were the sisters of what's her name? What's
Rebecca.
Seppi?
Yes, yeah.
That was her last name.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, was it?
Yes,
Anyway,
Rebecca.
a lot of these people probably don't even know we're online today because with such short notice, wasn't able to contact everybody. Paul wondered why he hadn't got a letter. I said, well, that's because I didn't send one, you know. Everything sort of fell apart with the what was going on at the Helen Marie Taylor Museum and what's of course going on with this coronavirus situation. We're under lockdown here. You know, I'm basically under house arrest unless you have to go out for an emergency. So we don't have a lot of contact with people. If you're not into computers, if you're not into writing letters or whatever, we tend to get isolated and passed over, you know, as forgotten sort of thing. But everybody connected with this whole affair is continually in my mind. Even all the people that have helped us over the years, the ones that came and built the chapel at Mount Carmel, those that have faithfully come to the memorials year after year. And unfortunately, each year that group gets smaller and smaller. The original survivors get less and less. Those that have helped us, you know, building or financial assistance, all of those people for the last 27 years, they've all also been dying off. So it's good that we can get together, those that can, but I'll probably go back to snail mail after this is over and fill them in on who is available for the 19th this year and wish them Godspeed, basically. Eddie, you there?
I am.
Did you want to say something about putting this together? What motivated it and all that?
No, I give all credit to Kathy Westinger, actually. Kathy's the one that put this together. Kathy's the one that went through the several practice runs. So Kathy deserves all the credit.
Oh, well, hold on.
Did I make you cry, Kathy?
Well, thank you, Eddie, but you've been doing a lot of work to get to be proficient showing the PowerPoint when Clive calls the names. And we also want to thank Matt Whitmer because he put together the PowerPoint with all the people's faces several years ago. And I know he put a lot of work in it. So everyone's very grateful to Matt for his work on the PowerPoint with those who died in '93. There are other survivors here, so I'm wondering if they would like to speak. I see Dana and Catherine Schroeder and Scott and Mab. Heather, yes, Heather. Heather, do you have something to say? I thought you said you did.
No,
You're gonna be shy.
I'm not shy.
Come on, Heather, say something.
Get your hand away from your face.
We like to see your face,
sis.
Heather.
Come on, sis.
No, I can't.
Well, I'll say this on behalf of Heather. I'm very, very glad. I'm very fortunate and I'm very blessed that she's in my life, and I'm very, very thankful that she was negotiated out. I will say that.
Okay, it's Kat. Can I say something to Heather? I want to say that I love you and thank God that you're here with us. And everyone that is on this call, I want to appreciate you for being there, for participating now, And I want to thank you, Catherine, for putting together this type of format, because some of us do live far away, and physically making it to Texas for the memorials each year has been a difficult process and unattainable at times. So to be able to see your faces today is amazing. Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing to Heather really quick. That me being back here in Texas for this amount of time that I've been back, it's been an honor and a privilege getting to know Heather and her family again and being here with them and for them. And, you know, when I say I want your life to be everything it can, Heather, I wish just nothing but the best for you and your family. I love you guys so much. And Heather, I understand the kind of darkness that you go through, especially during this period of time, but you're just so important to everyone. You are so important to this story, and just being you is, I don't think you have any idea how much all the people here just love you. And I'm just so glad you're here. That's all. I love you.
Hey, if you don't mind, I actually, I wrote a poem down on Facebook, and when I did it, I thought of Heather. And so if you don't mind, I'll read it. It's really short. It's called Their Journey's Just Begun. Don't think of them as gone away. Their journey's just begun. Life holds so many faucets. This earth is only one. Just think of them as resting from the sorrows and the tears, in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how they must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of them as living in the hearts of those they touched, for nothing loved is ever lost, and they were loved so much.
That's very good.
I found that, and I really thought of Heather when I saw it, because I know Heather's been going through a very difficult time, especially as the time gets closer to the memorials. So Heather, we love you, and know that we'll do anything we can ever to help you.
We love you, Heather.
She knows she's loved by all of us, and I love all of y'all.
Children that came out during the siege are still around, and they're still keeping in contact with each other through the brother, Kevin Jones. He has a Facebook page that contact each other through, and I'm an old fuddy-duddy. I still use snail mail. I still try to visit people instead of just calling them up and all of that. And sometimes we're able to meet with them. We met with Scott Shinobi's two girls recently. Crystal had a baby. We were happy to meet her. We tried to see Joshua up in New Bedford, Massachusetts, but couldn't make contact with him or his father. We found the house, but he wasn't there. So, you know, I love all of these people. They mean so much to me, not just because we went to the same church, so to speak, but a lot of them I've known ever since they were born. And, you know, I told the girls up in Virginia, the Shinobi girls, that when the oldest one was born, I took her mother, Floresita, to the hospital. I think Scott was out in California or something, so I drove her to the hospital and, of course, went in periodically to check on her. And after she'd had the baby, I went in and they told me to put on all these gown and gloves and mask and everything, and Corona hadn't even arrived at that time. but Crystal had come by, you know, she was just been born. And so I said, why are you telling me to dress up with all this hospital equipment? Well, we're bringing the baby in for a feeding, and you can't handle it unless you're all decked out, you know. I guess they figured I was the father because had brought her, I was visiting, and so I kind of teased her about that everybody thought I was your dad, you know. But they were very friendly, they're very happy. So I often make these big trips looking for survivors, go out of my way, to, you might say, to make contact with them. And by and large, I think most of them appreciate that. And so my mother used to always say, I don't remember the children as the ones that died in the fire. I don't remember them being dead. I only remember them when I took care of them, babysat them, taught them, took them for walks, whatever. And that's what the only thing any of us can do is to remember the living when they were living. And so, like I say, we're a big, happy family, including all the people that we've met since then that have joined this family, not for religious reasons necessarily, just because they had a concern that what happened at Mount Carmel should not have happened, should never have gone down the way it did. And so we appreciate those that took a stand, those that became our friends. And hopefully we can continue to be friends with whatever time's left to each of us. Anybody else got anything that they'd like to say?
We haven't.
I was hoping that Scott might say something about Michael, if he wants to. You have to hit mute, buddy. You have to unmute it, Scott. Can't hear you. I don't have audio. All right, sorry, man.
Hold on, let me see if I can find Scott in the list here, and I can unmute him, I think, if I can just find his name.
We haven't heard from him also.
Yeah, it looks like he is unmuted,
Okay, that's good. All right, great.
but I don't think he's got a mic that's working.
Hang on, let me go get him. He's outside. I was in my room. He was out back.
How about, I wonder if Dana would like to say something while we wait on Scott.
He can just use my phone, you guys, and Scott's ready now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go. I can hear myself now. Hello, everybody. First, I want to thank Catherine for being a connection for everybody to get this set up. I've not been one to be involved with the organization of these things because you guys do an excellent job. Eddie, Tibbs, Clive, you guys champion this group, keeping the memories alive. Without you guys, we would struggle. As you notice with the Joneses, it's difficult for us sometimes, but you guys make it doable. Secondly, I want to thank all those who were not directly involved, but are here, who show support, who show care to know what actually happened, to know the truth of things. You guys, at least for me, you also make it easier to relive this, basically. As some of you know, some of you may not, I returned last year for the first time. Been like 25, 26 years or something since I had been back to Waco. And it's not the easiest thing. I tend to try to focus on the positives, keep a positive mindset in life, and not stay too focused on the things that are difficult. But I'm very glad that I did that last year. I'm grateful for all the people that I met, the support that I saw down there. I was shocked. I was truly amazed to see how many people are actually involved and get involved. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's motivating. It's just motivating, and it's a positive vibe that I see in the people who support this, that want to remember the tragedy that 93 was. Excuse me. As for myself, my hardest difficulty is in why Tibbs always likes to throw me in here. But I appreciate it. I need that little shove sometimes. But I like to remember my stepfather. He died during the initial raid in a different manner than most everyone remembers. It's the aspects of that I struggled with that made me turn away from it, I suppose. Why it took me 25 plus years to return, to ponder on things. But he was one of the most amazing men I've ever known. And if you don't know me, I've been around. I lived my life as a military brat. I moved around all over. I've met all kinds of people. This man was truly just a good man. It's the only word that I can use to describe it. Just goodness, just wanting to do what's right for everyone around him. And I feel that that's what I see embodied in this group. The desire to be good to each other, to lift each other up, and to remember those that don't have the opportunity to be here doing that with us due to absolutely no fault of their own. Mike was an inspiration to me in so many facets of life, but I hope that this group can continue to be that, at least for me, an inspiration of positivity on this planet when we have so much the opposite going on. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and I appreciate the effort that all of y'all have put in at organizing this as well. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Scott. That's why I put you in there, Scott. That was absolutely beautiful.
This is Dana. Can you hear me?
A little.
A little, if you could speak up a little, that'd be great.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is my first memorial. It's only taken 27 years. And I appreciate that this is going on and has been for so many years. I can tell you that Sky and Scooter are two very, very wonderful young men and have grown up, Dave. I wish they could be here with me right now, but it's still 6:30 in the morning and not quite light out yet. But they've grown up to be two fine young men. They're both in the National Guard and facing activation with this coronavirus thing. So that's what's going on today, but
Hey, Dana,
know,
can you tell
Sky
everyone,
is, huh?
can you tell everyone who you are and Diane's
Oh, sorry.
those who might not know?
My name's Dana, and I was one of David's wives. I have two of his sons named Sky and Scooter. And I left the Branch Davidians about a year before the fire. So I'm no longer what I consider a member. I'm a former member. But that doesn't mean that what happened was wrong or was right, put it that way. I know exactly where I and my children would have been and how we would have died. And that's a heavy thing to think about. And I went through a lot of years of anger and tears and adjustments. But I'm glad I'm still here, and I'm glad the kids are still here, and they've each thanked me for leaving when I did. But I tell them, as Dave said earlier, I respect those who died because they died for what they believed in. And that's a big deal. And I'm glad there are people who still remember this. And Heather, I love you too. Because I think of the children as well. And I think of David. Yes.
Dana, I just want to tell you that we respect you too. And we love you too. And just because someone left, wasn't there on February 28th, doesn't mean you're not part of the family. And I think everyone on this call feels like part of that family. And you should too.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say hello to everyone, and especially to Clive. I've been thinking of you a lot lately. And to thank you for the gift you gave my kids last summer. I'm so happy I got down to Waco to see you and Sheila and Heather and to meet Charlie Pace even. Because the land didn't feel sad anymore. Because the last time I'd been there was in 2000 for the depositions. And it still felt very sad. And this past year, it felt more like it was healing. And that was so much better.
Oh, it was very well said, Dana, about the land healing. I love that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you guys so much for still being there.
Most people can't understand why we keep in contact, why we try to find the children that came out and let them know that they're loved and remembered. A lot of people can't understand that. It's a bond that we've all experienced, we've all gone through things together, and it's more bonding than maybe a real family. You know, people in a real family, large family, will get scattered and maybe won't talk to each other for years and years and years, but there's something that ties them together. Well, that's the way we are. You know.
I'm still writing my book, by the way, and your story about Sita having her baby in Palestine. I remember all the guys carrying her out of the woods. And she kept saying she needs to walk to get through her labor, but they insisted on carrying her out. And I hold a lot of those stories of the kids, of when they were born, and some of them are still around. And so I do think I owe it to them to finish this and write those stories down for them too. What do you think? Is it too late?
Never too late.
What's that?
Never too late.
I like to think I wanted to wait until my boys were a little more grown up. And they are.
Hopefully next year, all of this coronavirus situation will have been resolved or dissipated or whatever, and we can get back to meeting in the flesh. But as reluctant as I was to even consider this at first, you know, I'm an old fuddy-duddy. I'm going to be 80 in a few months. And so, you know, just to know that this situation is still working for us. It's still a viable way of keeping in contact. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel like it's worth living. You know, I got upset when I first got laid off at work. When I turned 70, they laid me off, and I was a little irritated because I needed that drive to get up in the morning, you know, have a purpose for getting up and going to work. Well, trying to stay in contact with this huge family of ours gives me a reason to continue on as well. And, you know, I have a friend downtown that she's beginning to realize how important this April 19th and remembering everybody and communicating with everybody how important that is to me. Like I said, it gives me a reason to exist. It gives me hope for the future. And a lot of people wonder why I still hang on to my faith. And I says, well, I was in the faith when all of this happened. I was part of the group that this happened to. And since then, I've lost boys, I've lost my mother. You know, this is the only family I've got left. All my immediate relatives are all dead now. When you live to 80, that's what happens. But I used to joke that I was going to live forever. I don't know whether that'll happen. Maybe not in God's plan, but I'll live as long as God lives. We can be a blessing to everybody that we come in contact with. Hey, Matt, you got anything to say?
Me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you doing?
You're doing pretty good.
Well, I'm glad we were able to get together in this format, even though it is virtual and not in person. I think we get to see many more people than we normally would hear from. I even think next year, if we do it in person, we could still have this open so that people who aren't able to make it would be able to participate and share their stories and be with us.
Something to work towards.
Yeah, yeah, I really miss being there.
Well, like I said, I felt bad since it was a kind of a last minute decision we had to make, as all the plans were to have it at the museum and so forth. And so we haven't had a chance to even contact everybody. And I know that they're going to feel left out, or they're going to feel bad about it. But what I'll probably do is put out a real old snail mail letter after the fact and let them know what went on today, tell them miss them, and hopefully see them in the next memorial.
That sounds great.
The technology, they don't, as well, they can look at it in their smartphone. I said, how many people have got a smartphone? You know, there's a certain class of people or a certain age level, they're all into technology. For some of us, that's a big step to get involved in this. And so, like I said, I'd probably go back to writing letters or tying notes to pigeons to send them out.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I think Phil Arnold.
Yeah, Phil Arnold's on. Hi, Phil.
Well, welcome, Phil Arnold.
Phil, something's wrong with your sound.
Sound like you've been on the helium balloon.
Yeah, your audio is really crazy.
I didn't know Mickey Mouse was joining us.
It's actually
Phil, maybe you can type on the Phil can type on the chat.
Well, that was much comic relief.
Sounds like
I think you need to go to your settings and get something set up, which is what the code is.
it's good to see your mom that she's here.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Clive personally for all these years keeping all of this together. Clive Doyle, and Eddie always calls Clive Doyle a spiritual guru, and it's true. Clive never gets angry. He's always even keel. He's the person that visited all the guys in jail when they were in jail. He's kept everyone together. He's gone and visited everyone that he possibly can. He is, Clive, you're the glue that pulls this whole thing together. And I just, God bless you. Thank you so much for, no matter what was going on in my life, turmoil or the good times or whatever, I always knew that I could come. Even when I couldn't afford to come here, April 19th, I always knew that it would be going on and you would be here and you guys would be here. So anyway, thank you, Clive, for that. Thank you so much for doing all this all these years. And Clive's the example of what the scripture says. Visit the people in jail, visit the fatherless, live a selfless life and try to do for others. And that's why Clive's whole life is an example of that, being as selfless as possible and living for others. And I just love you. Thank you so much for being that example.
Yes, I actually want to thank you too, Clive, because it seems like when everyone has lost their faith, you always still have it. And I know when I came here, there a lot of faith was really not around, and you helped raise my faith up a lot, and I appreciate that. And I know that anytime I have any problems or I am questioning something, I can come to you and you just straighten it out just like that, because you have so much faith, and I appreciate that.
And wisdom.
And wisdom especially. And we love you very much. I feel like we're very blessed to live next door to you.
Are we coming close to noon? Clive wants to know.
We have 10 minutes. We're about 7 or 8 minutes away.
Okay.
At noon, we'll go through the names as we usually do.
Just like to say that I've been in Waco now for 22 years, and this has actually been a life-saving experience for me. I come from hard times, and when I came down here, I actually came down to face my past and face a monster who I thought was the government, but actually turned out to be me. And I more or less defeated some of those monsters that were within me by accepting what happened here in its fullest reality. So that this has been, like I said, a life-saving experience for me, and I am very, very grateful for having met everybody that I have here. Thank you very much. Steve Benjamin Kreider, I know you're in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. If I'm going to say anything, I'm just going to point out that, there's a lot of people that have come to this through the years for different reasons. And some of them have come for political reasons. Some of them, come just to see what happened. But I ultimately believe that everybody was drawn here for the same reason, whether they acknowledge it or not. And that's the fact that there was a spiritual message being taught here. And that's still in progress, I think that what David was preaching was the truth. I think he had the gift of prophecy, and I think that we're going to see that go forward soon. I really do. A lot of people, they ask, why so long? Why is so much time passed? And I personally believe that the seventh seal, David, there was a paper written in 1992 by Mark Burrell, who copyrighted it to 1992. And in that paper, he noted that David believed that the seventh seal was going to be opened in 1995. And as I understand the things I've been taught since I've been here, events on earth mirror events in heaven. And I believe that event happened in heaven in 1995. And after the seventh seal is opened in Scripture, there's a space of time mentioned, about a half hour of silence in heaven. And given the metric in Scripture in Psalms 90 and in 2 Peter chapter 3, we know that a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years with man. And by that metric, there's that's about 21 years on the earth. But it doesn't give the exact time. It says about the space. And so I believe that we're seeing events happen in the world now. And I believe it's going to become obvious very soon. I believe Waco and the group that followed David are going to be thrust into the spotlight again soon. And I believe that the world is going to see the message of the seals going forward soon, whether they all accept it immediately or not. At some point, everyone will. And that's all I have to say.
Well, it's a privilege to know everyone, and I care about all of you, and And I wish all of you well. And it is indeed, it's been a great privilege to have everyone, or have a number of you, to tell me your stories, either for the was it three autobiographies, and then all the interviews. And then plus there was Catherine Madison, who I interviewed at great length, and her transcripts are in the Texas collection at Baylor University. So I believe that every survivor has the right to tell their story. And it's been a privilege to hear and record that story for some of you. And for the other survivors, I encourage you to write. For instance, Dana is writing, and I think that's great. Either write or otherwise tell your story, because it's really, really important. And it's been a privilege, so thanks. And it's 4 minutes till noon, so I don't see why you can't start with the names a bit early. Is that okay? Clive, I'll just say, maybe if you lean a little closer to the iPad or whatever so the audio can pick you up clearly.
This is all still really incredible that we've been able to do this, even with short notice, to have everybody come together and see each other and hear from everybody. I think it's amazing.
Okay, Eddie's the co-host now.
Okay, yeah, and hey, I will throw this out there too. I really did like Matt's idea. I think it'd be really cool to do a live stream every year if it's possible, but.
Yeah, we can brainstorm about that.
Yeah, maybe even the night before.
There we go, I see it.
Clive.
We're going to start out with the 4 ATF agents that died on February 28, 1993. The first one is Conway LeBleu. He was aged 30, American, and we just want to remember them as well as our own. Todd McKeon, aged 28. Robert Williams, age 26. Steve Willis, age 32. These 4 officers were killed during the shootout on February 28. We're sorry about that, as far as, that it happened. I don't know who shot them exactly, but they were part of the raid that took place and paid the ultimate price, basically. You got the first one, David? Eddie?
There it is.
On February 28, 1993, as a result of the raid, Winston Blake from England was shot and killed from the helicopters. They shot into his room where he was sitting on his bed, and he's one of 6 that died on that day. The next one we have is a young Australian boy, age 24, Peter Gent. He was the one that was shot on the water tower, probably from the helicopters, more than likely. He had a twin sister later. Peter Gent was buried. We got him down from the water tower across the road, across the driveway from the building, and ultimately the tanks ran over his grave back and forth. Peter Hipsman was an American. initially from New York, but came to us, joined us from Hawaii. He was shot above the gym on what the ATF called the dog run. It was like a hall across the top of the gymnasium. He was buried along with several others in the storm shelter. I happened to get the job of digging a grave for him. Harry Jones, David Koresh's father-in-law, father of Rachel and Michelle. He was 64. He went to the front door with David Koresh, and both of them were shot by those agents that came to the front door. Michael Schroeder, an American from Florida. He wasn't killed in the initial raid on the building, but having heard about something going on, he and Bob Kendrick and another young guy from England tried to come back to Mount Carmel to be with, and all the roads were blocked off by enforcement agencies, and so they came through the back, through the fields, and eventually ended up in a creek bed down at the back of the property where Michael was shot. There were 7 agents that had been down, hunkered down in one of the barns on the Double E Ranch, and they were about to evacuate their position and call it a day. This is like 4 o'clock or so in the afternoon. And the next thing, somebody in the creek, and they all just started shooting, and Michael ended up being gunned down. J. Dean Wendell, of all the people that came from Hawaii, J. Dean is the only Hawaiian. She wasn't a Polynesian, but she was considered a princess in Hawaii, and she was killed in her bed shortly after getting the kids up, and I don't know whether she was feeding them or what, but she was shot on the second floor when the ATF agents that came out of the trailers just started strafing the whole front of the building, mostly on the second floor where the women and children were. So she was shot and died. She's another one that buried in the storm shelter initially. Now we're going to begin with those that died 51 days later, on April 19th, 1993. The first one we have is Kathy Andrade, an American citizen with an Argentinian background. She produced 2 children through David. She was killed on April 19th. Let me correct myself. She only had 1 child. That was Chanel Andrade, age 1. She died with her mother during the fire. Jennifer Andrade was Kathy's sister. She was age 19. She came to us, I think, when she was 17, with a big suitcase full of Disney movies, which was kind of tickled us, but she also died in the fire on April 19th. Ulrich George Bennett came to us from England. He was originally from Jamaica. He had building skills and so forth, and he was used by David to be in charge of construction and various projects at Mount Carmel. Went by the name of Rick. He was 35 when he died in the fire. Susan Benter was British. She was 31. She died in the fire on the 19th. She is also of Jamaican descent. For the benefit of those who have not been to memorials before, the ones with no picture are represented by rubbings from the stones that we had made for each one. Used to be in front of the trees when they were down in front of the church. So if you don't see a picture, that's the reason they were not available. Mary Jean Borst was an American. She came to Mount Carmel with her son several years before the raid. She was met by David in Northern California. She and Trudy Meyer and Ophelia Santoyo were all attending a Reformed Seventh-day Adventist meeting. They went to visit them, and she and her son Brad moved to Mount Carmel as a result of listening to what he had to say. David Koresh went to Israel on 3 different trips. And on one of them, he met a young Jewish boy, Pablo Cohen. He was an Israeli citizen there, but he'd come from Argentina. And David gave him a bass guitar and basically, just gave it to him and told him to take care of it or something like that. And years later, when Pablo Cohen came over, David asked him, did you still have the guitar? And he says, yes, he did. And David said, weren't you ever tempted to just sell it, get some money for it? He says, oh, yeah. But he chose to keep it, and he came over with it probably in 92, I guess. Abadawalo Davies came to us from England, but he was originally from Nigeria. We called him Dabo for short, because Abadawalo is a mouthful. He was only one of a few that actually came from Africa. There was another family from Kenya, but he was the only one from Nigeria. And he died in the fire April 19th. Sherry Doyle, my youngest daughter, was aged 18. She spent most of the 51 days along with Marjorie Thomas in the chapel. But a couple of days before the fire, David asked all the women that were on the first floor to go back to their regular rooms upstairs, which we did. And so I never saw her from the Friday onward. The fire was on the following Sunday. Beverly Elliott, British subject from Jamaica, age 30. She was engaged to Winston Blake, who was killed on the first day of the siege. She came to me during the standoff and said she wanted to see Winston's body. And I says, no, you don't really want to see him. He'd been dead for several days before that, and I had buried him out in the storm shelter. I said, you don't want to see him as he is, just remember him as he was. She died on April 19th. Doris Fagan, British subject from Jamaica, age 60, was Livingston Fagan's mother. She died in the fire April 19th. Her son Livingston was the last one of the prisoners, surviving members of the group that went to prison. He was the last one out of the federal penitentiary. Next one is Fagan. She was Livingston's wife. She was age 32. She died April 19th during the fire. She was the mother of 2 children that were sent out during the siege. I just talked to Livingston the other day for about 3/4 of an hour. He said he's still in contact with some of the survivors in England, but there's not too many of them still around. Next one we have is Lisa Marie Farrer. Lisa Marie Ferris was from California. She worked in a music store. That's where David met her. And David would go to various venues like clubs, restaurants, music stores, in order to, of course, share the message that he believed God had given him. And but he never just commandeered the time of any employee in any of the places. He would buy things so that the management would, not be upset and get the employees in troubles. So she was one of the music store workers that end up joining and following David back to Waco. She was age 24. Raymond Friesen was a long-time Branch Davidian, long before David came along. He was initially from Canada, but had moved to Mount Carmel from California. He and his wife, Tilly, had been in the Mennonite movement and had joined the branch in fact, about the time I came over from Australia, which was in 1966. Raymond was 76 years old. He died in the fire on April 19th. Sandra Hardiel was a British subject from Jamaica, age 27. She also died on April 19th, 1993. Zilla Henry. Zilla Henry was the matriarch of the Henry family. She and all the children came over in 1992. Her oldest daughter had been there before, I believe, on other visit, but Zilla and her children came over in 92. She brought her 5 children with her. All of them ended up dying in the fire. She was 55 at the time. Diana Henry, one of her daughters, was age 28. She died along with her siblings on April 19th. Stephen Henry, the oldest of the 2 boys, a brother to the girls, he was age 26. He died April 19. Paulina Henry, age 24, died April 19th. Philip Henry, age 22, died April 19th. He and the next one, his sister, Vanessa Henry, was the youngest of the family, age 19. She died April 19th. They used to sing as a family, and they had very good voices. Every once in a while, David would put on a concert sort of thing and allow people to participate, and they participated. They were very entertaining. Novelette Sinclair Hipsman was Canadian, originally from Montreal. She was age 36 at the time she died in the fire. She spoke French. She worked for the government up there translating. I met her in 1981 in Canada. She had studied with Lois Roden prior to David Koresh's leadership. And she also worked with David's mother, Bonnie Holdeman, doing cleaning jobs and going out and buying a lot of the food that we ate when we were in Palestine. Floyd Hammond was a longtime Branch Davidian. He was from New Bedford, Massachusetts. And when he came down in 80, I think it was, or 85, he came with 2 school bus loads of friends. One was Stan Beer. There was Victor Berto and another young guy. Down with their children And so he stayed all the way through to the fire and died in the fire on April 19th. Sherry Jewell was an American, part Japanese. She and her mother were both school teachers in California. She had also been in Hawaii. She was a good friend of Paul Fatter, and she was age 43 at the time of her death. Sherry's daughter, Kiri, went to live with her father prior to the raid, and still around today. She's alive and well, and has made contact with some of the other survivors from time to time. David Jones is an American. He was the oldest son of Perry Jones and Maribel. He's the infamous mailman that happened to go out to buy a newspaper on February 28th and ran into a TV crew or TV reporter down the road a bit who wanted to know the directions to Mount Carmel. And David had stopped, figure he had car problems or something, and so he'd stop and ask him, was he okay? And so he learned that something was going on. He called back to Mount Carmel and notified his father-in-law that some sort of a raid was going to take place. Somebody was coming out there. And so he, along with his sisters and his father, all died in the fire. Well, his father died on the first day, and he and his two sisters and their children died on April 19th. David Jones was the father of Heather and Kevin and Mark, which all survived. They were negotiated out during the siege. David Koresh, formerly known as Vernon Hal, came to Mount Carmel back in '81, began sharing things he was learning from scriptures, or from God actually, began sharing them with Lois Roden, who eventually turned the pulpit over to him in 1983. And David took a series of Bible studies, which was how a lot of us that were there already living there come to be a part of his group. So he was 33 at the time of his death. He'd also been wounded twice on February 28th, the first day of the raid. Rachel Hal Koresh was one of the younger daughters of Perry and Maribel Jones. She was the legal wife of David Koresh. She was a sister of David and Michelle Jones, who were killed on April 19th. Rachel's 3 children were also killed on April 19th. Cyrus Hal was Rachel's oldest boy. He was aged 8. He died April 19th, even though some people had claimed that he'd been shot and killed on the first day of the raid. But that was not true. So he and his mother and his sisters died on April 19th. He was only 8 years old. Star Hal was Cyrus's sister. She was age 6. And she, along with her mother and brother and sister, died in the fire. Bobby Lane Koresh, age 2, died in the fire. Her mother was Rachel, and David was her father. Jeffrey Little was an American. He came initially from Michigan, but he and his friend Greg Summers had moved to Hawaii. They came in with all of the ones from Hawaii that joined us, and Jeff was shot on February 28th. He and Greg Summers had a comedy act. They pretty well liked by everybody that was there. Nicole Gent Little was an Australian. She was the twin sister of Peter, age 24, and he died on the first day of the raid, and she died on the last day in the fire. She was married to Jeff Little, who was killed on the first day along with her brother. Her children were Dayland and Pages, and also a baby that was aborted due to the trauma of the fire and the smoke and everything. Dayland Gent was age 3. He was Nicole's oldest boy. His 2 sisters were killed along with him in April 19th. Pages Gent was a twin. She and her sister, little one, were aged 1. They died in the fire April 19th. She also aborted a baby, like I said, and there were two babies born during the fire. Of course, they both perished, but the mothers were both expecting pretty close to home birth. Livingston Malcolm came to us from England, from Britain, and was of Jamaican descent. He was a cousin to the musician Bob Marley. He was one of 10 people that were in the chapel behind the petition. David Thibodeau and I ended up when the fire took over the building April 19th. He was age 26. Diane Martin, British, no relation to Sheila. She was age 41. She died April 19th. She had traveled to Texas several times to study with David over the years, and was still there at the time of the fire. Sorry. Douglas Wayne Martin, age 42, husband of Sheila Martin, who is a survivor. Sheila had come out during the siege with 3 of her children, and but they had 7 children. 4 of them died on April 19th. Wayne was the lawyer who called 911 during the raid and was trying to get them to call it off. Wayne Martin was of Wayne Senior, American, age 20, died April 19. He had 3 siblings, and his father were all killed on April 19. Nita Marie Martin, American, aged 18. She was the oldest of the girls. She was the same age as Michelle Jones and my daughter, Sherry. Sheila Renee Martin, age 15, died April 19th. She is also the daughter of Wayne and Sheila. Lisa Marie Martin, age 13, died April 19th. She was the youngest daughter of Wayne and Sheila. They all died in the fire. John Mark McBean was a British minister from Jamaica. He and his sister Janet came over in '92. Was a ministerial student from England. His sister Janet was in California at the time of the raid, so she is a survivor. but he died at the age of 27 in the fire on April 19th. John Bailey, British, from Jamaica, age 31, died April 19, 1993. She was a friend with the John Mark McBean's family. She was also a nurse. Many of the girls from England were nurses. I always thought it was kind of strange, though, that they couldn't stand the sight of blood. They didn't like pain. Rosemary Morrison, British, age 29, died April 19th. She was the mother of Melissa, who was also killed on the 19th. And of all the British victims, she and her daughter were the only two that were never sent back to England. For some reason, nobody would claim them or pay for them or whatever. So they're buried here in Waco. Melissa Morrison was her daughter. She was asked, I believe, by the FBI during the siege whether she wanted to come out, and said no, she wanted to stay with her mother. And they told her, well, why don't you and your mother come out? You know, but they didn't. They stayed until the end and died in the fire. Sonia Murray, British, age 29, died April 19th, 1993. Teresa Nobrega came from England. She was of Portuguese descent. She came with her daughter, Natalie, who was negotiated out during the siege. Natalie has since married, and her father, Victor, stays in contact with me. He usually calls or sends a card. He's very concerned that his wife died in a fire but got no respect from the government. In other words, none of the families of either the ones that were killed or the ones that survived ever received any monetary benefit from the government. She was 48 at the time of her death. James Riddle, probably at the time of the raid, he was probably my best friend. He was age 32. He was from North Carolina. He was a great friend of me and Bonnie Holdeman. He had a sister that was there, but she was negotiated out during the siege. Riddle. She had a daughter, Misty Ferguson, who stayed behind after her mother came out, but was badly burned in a fire, but survived. She's the one that lost all they amputated all the fingers off both her hands. And she and Marjorie Thomas both went through a lot of skin grafts and surgeries and so forth after the fire. Juliet Santoyo was Ophelia Santoyo's daughter. At the time of the fire, when she died, she was age 30. She was of Mexican descent. She had 5 children. All of them died in the fire, April 19th. Audrey Martinez was a daughter of Juliet Santoyo. She was age 13. She died April 19th. Her and her 4 siblings were also killed. Abigail Martinez, age 11, died April 19th, 1993. She was also Joseph Martinez, was aged 8. He was at the same age as Cyrus, David's son. His mother was Juliet Santoyo. He died in a fire April 19th. Isaiah Barrios, age 4, was also Juliet Santoyo's son. Most of us called him Taco. He and his sister were from a different husband to Juliet, so that's why the difference in last names. Crystal Barrios, Taco's younger sister, age 3, died April 19th. Mother was Juliet Santoyo, who was killed on April 19th. 4 siblings also were killed on that day. Rebecca Sapay was from New Zealand, basically a Samoan. There's a lot of Samoans live in New Zealand. She was age 24. Her 2 siblings had come over earlier when we used to live in Palestine, and they had already left. She was the last one of her family staying there, and she died in the fire. I visited the grave in New Zealand when Ron and I were over there last year. Steve Schneider was an American from Wisconsin, but he was in Hawaii teaching at the university, comparative religions. He died April 19th. He met David Koresh in Hawaii. He joined David's group during the Palestine era, and he negotiated with agents during the siege. He was kind of like David's right-hand man, part of his ministry anyway. Judy Schneider, age 41, was Steve's wife. She was wounded on the first day of the siege. She had a bullet that struck her in the and skipped all the way up her arm, kind of in and out all the way up her arm. Judy gave birth to a child, age 2, Minor Snyder. She died with her mother on April 19th. Clifford Sellers, one of the few British subjects that came over to us from England. He was 80. He was an artist. He was born in Hong Kong because his father was in the military. Painted. He was working on redoing Victor Houteff's prophetic charts for David. He was redoing them in color and upgrading them. But he also did airbrushing and so forth. He did a lot of the motorcycles, and he did signs for various businesses in California when we were out there. Scott Kojirou Shinobi was a Japanese American from Hawaii. He was age 35 when he died in a fire. He'd also been wounded on the first day of the raid. His father once came to visit us and really thanked David for turning his son's life around, making him into a model person, you might say. Apparently being a handful for his parents when he was younger. He was married to Floresita, the father of Crystal and Angelica. Floresita Shinobi was a Filipino American citizen, married to Scott. She was age 34 on April 19th. She was the mother, like I said, of Crystal and Angelica, and they were the first children negotiated out. She initially walked them up to the front gate and handed them over. The federal people complained about that. They figured they were setting themselves up for snipers to shoot them, so they wouldn't accept any more children just being brought up to the gate. And so she was told to drive all the others brought out down to the corner, down where the water towers were, almost a half a mile away. And to do that, she used what's Rita's daughter's name? Misty Ferguson. She used Misty Ferguson's car, and it turned out during the siege that the FBI and the tanks decided to bulldoze all our building supplies into a big bonfire just on the south side of the chapel. They start pushing cars up onto the heap. We thought they were going to light them up, and one of the cars they put up there was the car that we were using to take everybody out and hand them over to the FBI. Louis Summers was an American. He was age 28. He was from New York. He came to us from Hawaii. Something about Hawaii that attracts a lot of people, apparently, that come from other places. He worked with Judy Schneider and was great friends with Peter Hitzman. They were roommates in their apartment. And he died in April 19th, 1993. Aisha Gayafas Summers. She's an Australian. She was age 17. She was of Hungarian descent. She came to Texas with her brother and her parents. Her brother Oliver was negotiated out during the siege, and she was the mother of Startle Summers, and also aborted a baby during the fire. Startle Summers, age 1, was Aisha's daughter, and she perished in the fire along with her parent. She also aborted a baby on April 19th, similar to Michelle, not Michelle,
Gent.
Nicole.
Gent.
Yes. Lorraine Sylvia, initially from England, was an American citizen. She was married to Stan Sylvia. She was the daughter of 3 children. They were good friends of Floyd Hammond. They came in a bus along with Floyd Hammond's family and others back in the mid-'80s. Lorraine died with her 2 daughters, Rachel and Hollywood, on April 19th. Rachel Sylvia was age 12. She was Lorraine's oldest daughter. She died in the fire along with her other family members. Hollywood Sylvia was aged 1. She died in the fire along with her mother, Lorraine. Michelle Jones Thibodeau, American, youngest daughter of Perry and Maribel Jones. She was 18, same age as my daughter. She died April 19th, 1993. Her mother, Mary Bell Jones, was not at Mount Carmel during the siege. She was one of the survivors up until she passed away a few years back. She was the sister of Rachel Hal Koresh and David Jones, who was the mailman. Serenity C. Jones, age 4, was her Michelle's oldest daughter. She died with her mother, April 19th. Chica Jones was age 22 months. She's a twin to little one Jones. Both had Michelle as their mother. Both died in the fire. The little one, her twin sister. Margaretta Vega was from China. She was an American citizen, age 47. She was married to Neil Vega when they're in Hawaii. She was killed April 19th, but she'd already sent her daughter Joanne out during the siege. So Joanne is still out there somewhere. Neil Vega was Margarita's husband. He was age 38. He was of Samoan descent, but he was born in America when his parents were over here traveling. And he's buried in Auckland, New Zealand. He died in the fire. Mark Wendell, age 40, died April 19, 1993. He was well educated. He worked for several school districts in California, married to Jay Dean, who was killed on the first day of the siege. He was the father of 4 children who were sent out during the siege. They were eventually sent to, I think, Jay Dean's sister in Wyoming that we haven't had any contact with since. That's the end of our presentation on those that died April 28th and April 19th. I would have liked to put together some pictures of those that have died since, but we'll save that for another time. I'd also like to invite you to go out to eat with us, but they won't let us do that. We're all under house arrest, so to speak, and the restaurants are closed anyway. You have to get it and take it out, you know, go to the lake or something. But then the lake's probably closed to the public as well. Any comments, any last minute thoughts you want to share with us? Any questions?
I just had one comment, Clive. Thank you to whoever put that PowerPoint together, but I noticed that your pictures, the one of Jeff Little was actually Peter Hipsman. Jeff Little had an afro, a red-headed afro.
Yeah, thank you. We need to correct that. We've used that presentation since 2017 was the first time. The PowerPoint actually stemmed out of Kathy Wessinger was doing a presentation and asked me to create a composite picture of everyone, and I did. And then I started thinking, well, for the memorial, it might be nice to actually project photographs of each individual person. So that's sort of how the project began. And it's not perfect, but there are a few things that need to be fixed. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think you have a picture with Jeff in it, because I saw a picture of Judy.
Okay.
And I think she's next to Jeff in that picture.
Oh, okay. We'll have to fix that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Maybe you can identify. I think we have mixed up the two, and if you could identify which one he is, or I was thinking, Matt, that perhaps I sent them the wrong PowerPoint, but did you correct that?
No, you sent the most updated one.
Okay, good. All right, thanks.
And thank you, Eddie and Kathy and David and Scott, everybody who's helped put on this today. This has really been great.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. I just want to say one quick thing. This is Belinda. I'm David Thibodeau's mother. And I really want to commend you, Clive, on the presentation. And I want to say one thing about it that I think is really important and very essential. And I hope you will always continue to do it. And that is giving a little bit of the history of each person who you are honoring, because there are people that are watching this that you'll never know. They may never get in touch. And there are people who are going to be watching it year after year that have not done it before. This is my first memorial to be with you all. And I'm a little ashamed of that. Nonetheless, I'm so happy you did it virtually so that I could be a part of it. But those little histories are so essential. It opens up a completely different chamber in the heart and in the mind. So please keep that up. Talk about who they were and little anecdotes about their lives as much as possible. It doesn't matter how much time it takes. Once you start listening to your presentation, Clive, time just stops. it doesn't matter. So please always keep this up and keep up their stories. The stories are what bring people to the memorial, and the stories are what will bring those people to tell other people to come and share that memorial. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda.
You're welcome.
So James, your audio was really super garbled. We caught bits and pieces, but I think you were saying that it's really important right now with this Netflix special just to reach out to everybody. It's the first time we've had millions and millions of viewers that have nowhere else to go but to watch this. And this is a really unprecedented time in history. We need to push. We really do. We need to push and try to reverse all of these years of misinformation and lies.
Yeah.
And for the hey, real quick for the record,
the audio was full, but that essentially that I'm going to the modem. That'll help. Is it any?
Yeah, it's still now.
Not yet, but James,
No.
Phil, something's wrong with Phil's audio also, so that's
What it
why we
is.
can't hear from Phil. But Eddie, I thought I heard your voice. You were going to say
yeah,
something.
I was just going to throw in one thing, just for the record. As of 2019, Netflix had 167 million paid subscribers. That is the biggest audience that this will have.
And then all of the people taking that password and sharing it with friends as well.
That's a good point. Hi, Paul Fata.
Is Paul there?
He is.
Yeah, I've seen him. He's on.
Very good.
Would it be possible for me to speak?
Go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Erin, and I'm actually one of those that, unfortunately, I was not there. But I am one of the millions of Americans that you all have touched in a remarkable and beautiful way. And I don't think any of us that were alive during the siege could ever forget what we were watching on our TVs, the horror before our eyes. But I am so grateful that the truth is now out there, that we are seeing now, thanks to David, thanks to your book, which I have read cover to cover a couple of times now. Thanks to different documentaries that show the true side of what happened on February 28th and again on April 19th. And I think it is very important that all of you know that you have a very loving, supporting family outside of the family that you had in Waco that day and outside of the family that you have today. That there are millions of us that are beside you, with you, and in your heart, and you will always be in ours. And for doing this today, we thank you so very much, and we love you all. And
We do.
that was all I had to say.
Thank you very much, Aaron. That was what Phil said.
You want to say hi, Starla?
But I'm trying to unmute Starla. Starla, if you'd like to unmute yourself, I think they'd like to hear from you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hello. It's wonderful to be a part of this unique memorial service this year. And I'll be, my prayers and heart goes out to everybody. And I thank you all for letting me be your friend all these years. And you all have touched my heart by your dedication to your God. And it's given me my own faith in God right now. So thank you very much for letting me be a part of your lives all these years. I love y'all.
We love you too, Starla.
Thank you, Kathy.
I see Tommy Cook is in there somewhere.
I'd like to say goodbye too, and hello.
Hi, Rebecca.
I can't make my picture come up. I've tried to, and it keeps going back to taking me off of there. But I wanted to say hello, and I too am so thankful that I've been a part of all of your lives, and you've been a part of my life. So thank you for having this today. It's a good thing we're doing. It's a privilege to come and honor these people that gave so much to stand for the truth. So I'm very privileged to be here.
Hi, Becky. Thank you, Becky.
Hello.
Who do we have?
How about Douglas? Does Douglas want to say anything?
Doug?
Here, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just would like to, number one, say thank you so very much. I feel like I've known you all for a very, very long time, but only until recently in the last 2 years, actually really gotten to know a few of you. And gosh, you know, I'm completely amazed and honored and to know you. And thank you so much for welcoming me in with open arms. Gosh, I was wondering if I was going to be called upon, and I was like hoping that I wouldn't, but hoping that I would. I'm really at a loss for words. Those of you that know me know that I'm pretty outspoken and like to cut it up, and I speak a lot. But right now it's one of those situations where I'm like, ooh. So again, I just want to say thank you all so very much. You are, it's truly wonderful to know you all. And I'm sorry, I wish I could say more, but I'm just, I'm very touched to be a part of this group. You all mean the world to me, and I love you all very much, and God bless. And we'll see you guys soon after all this is over.
Hey, Paul, you got anything to say?
I see Paul, but I don't see a microphone for him. So I don't know if he's got a microphone for some reason to speak.
Yeah, I think he's just listening, although I thought I heard him earlier.
Okay.
How about Tom Cook?
Tommy.
Yeah.
Might be on mute.
Tommy needs to unmute.
It looks like he's having some problems.
There we go.
Hello, all.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, Tommy.
I hear you. You're soft, but we hear you.
Get closer to the mic.
There's Charlene. And Mary Winborn's here too, I think. I love y'all.
We love you.
I just want to say, whoa.
You're too close to Clive.
All right, sorry about that, guys. It sounds like I'm giving a talk in Yankee Stadium or something. I get to play music with Ed. So Ed Hart, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You know, just as a Johnny come lately to all this, you know, I remember watching this unfold, you know, when I was 18, 19 years old, and just having read, you know, what was available to me. And then in the age of social media, you know, being able to reach out to somebody, you know, like I remember watching the series and I was like hesitant to reach out to Tibbs. And it was just amazing, you know, what a cool guy, you know. And to go on that, or, you know, in addition to that, I was playing a gig on New Year's Eve, and I walk in through the back door of the bar, and then Tibbs is standing there point blank range in front of me. I'm like, wait, what's going on? It was just surreal. I remember playing and like, you know, right in front of me, I'm like, this guy who's been like a voice for so many people, you know, that can't tell their side of things. it was just surreal just to be in his presence and having to, you know, have some dialogue with Ron and getting to know Eddie and, you know, Heather, and, you know, had some dialogue with Scott, you know, just, I'm just grateful to know everybody. You know, I became really good friends with Doug through all this, and just, wow, I'm just happy to know all you guys, and, you know, happy to know that there's just people in all corners of the earth, you know, that are here for you. Sorry, I didn't have anything prepared. I'm just rambling now, so I'll turn it back over to whoever.
No, that was actually perfect, Ed, because I feel like during the events of '93, the people that survived, the people that died for that matter, have seen the worst in humanity. But over the years, coming through all this, we've also seen the best. We have been this beacon for some of the greatest people, I think, that are in this country and in this world, have come to Mount Carmel and befriended us. And they're just, it's like for all the bad that you get sent in life, God sends equal good.
Sure has.
The first time I met James Tabor, when James Tabor walked into the room, there was a light around him. It was like there was an aura and a halo. There's not many people, and at that time, everything was negative. There was absolutely nothing positive going on at that point in my life. It was all horrible. And Tabor was that angel that was sent to me at that time. So I understand, you know, you guys coming here as some kind of beacon, and the friendship that I feel for all of you and that you may feel for us. It's very real. It's very universal. And we love you all very much. Thank you guys for being a part of our lives.
I hope we get to jam with you again soon.
Me too. That was fun.
I
David?
see Mary Winborn would like to say something, and also John Mark. John Mark has his hand up to say something. So.
Hi, I'm Ray, John Mark's spiritual brother. And I wasn't there and part of your group, but I was watching the events unfold, and I knew at the time what the truth was. And I'm very thankful to be a part of this with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you guys very, very much. It's John Mark. Ray's here with me, and we're very thankful to be a part of this broadcast today. It still hurts me every day going through this. I love my sisters and brothers we lost and the ones who survived. And thank you again for being there in our part of our lives.
And
thank you, John.
Thank you.
Mary? Mary Winborn?
Let's see.
Well, I'd like to take a minute for condolences to James Tabor on the loss of his son this year.
Yes. Yes, James.
I
Very
appreciate that. Thank you, all of you. I wanted, did Phil leave, Arnold? Did he? I got knocked off, and so I had to reboot, and now I'm back.
Your audio is perfect, James.
So I think that what it was before, I was just in a bad part of the house.
Yeah, Phil left.
So, but I think you repeated pretty much what I said. I said that when the films came out on the 25th anniversary, we had Stuart Wright reviewed about 8 films, TV shows that came out. And all of them were horrible except for the A&E that was actually pretty good. But, none of them have been perfect. But I was so pleased this morning. You might have known it earlier, but I got up this morning like I feel on every April 19th, just heavy on my mind, trying to think back. And I saw that Netflix announcement and email that the Paramount 6-part scripted series was going to air. And I just felt so elated by that because, as I said, I think we've lost the battle with the public in terms of the narrative, but that show actually has a chance of turning the tide, not with everybody, of course, but with many people. And also wanted to say, David Thibodeau, remember we jumped on a couple planes to Israel and climbed Masada, and we both wanted to be in the Holy Land to try to kind of shake things off. And then if you remember that chilling story, I was invited for Shabbat on Friday night, the day I arrived. And it was Rabbi David Aaron who'd rented Koresh's apartment when he left. And had been there ever since. And he didn't tell me that. He said, "Do you want to come for dinner for Shabbat?" And I said, "Yeah." He's a rabbi, he teaches like yeshiva. I think he had met David when he was there, but Rabbi Aaron is the redheaded guy you always see on CNN. He stands out as a redheaded rabbi. But anyway, so I went to his house Friday night. This was before David arrived. David came a few days later than I did. And we're sitting in the upstairs of the apartment. I've been back since. I know the apartment well. In fact, I was going to try to rent it once because it's near our dig site in Jerusalem. And so as we're sitting at the table, he says, "James, good to have you here. Welcome to the land of Israel. I hear you were involved in that Waco thing." So I said, "Well, I really came over here to get away from some of that." This was in the summer after the fire of '93, to get away from some of that. And he said, "Well, you didn't succeed because you're sitting in Koresh's apartment. And it was furnished at the time, so you're actually sitting in his chair at the head of the table." And this is a true story. I literally just passed out. I said, I was shaking. I said, "What?" He says, "No, when I rented this, they were going up and down the stairs carrying their stuff to a truck, and I was going up. We were carrying our things in, and we lived here ever since. They've since moved." So I felt that was God telling me, "You want to get away from Waco? How about this?"
Yeah, you're not.
And that's when I decided to write the book. I said,
You're not.
I don't need to get away from Waco. I need to get closer to it. But David and I had an amazing time in Jerusalem and all over the land of Israel.
Good.
Memories.
There's David.
And Mary Wimborne was trying to speak. Mary, can you just speak up?
Can you hear me?
Just speak up a little louder.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Now we can.
Okay, great. I don't have too much to say, and I hope you can't see me because I look really terrible. But anyway, a lot of us were called to be there, and some of us sooner than others. And there's a reason for it, and we don't know all the reasons for it, but we will know someday. And I have this to say about the people who did the killing and the murdering. As a person recently saved or experienced the quickening, they too can be with Christ, but they must get up and confess what they've done in public. And that's just me saying that part. They just need to confess it. But there is hope for those people still. And there is hope for everyone. And that's basically what I wanted to say. I've been drilling down on Bible study a lot now, especially the New Testament and the prophets going forth saying what's going to happen. But thank you very much, and God bless everyone. I hope everyone stays well. Okay?
You too, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much.
Are we missing anybody with a message?
You there, Paul?
I don't think he has a mic.
He does not appear to have a microphone.
Okay.
Well, looking good anyway, Paul.
Yeah, glad he could be here.
Hey, Catherine.
Yes?
So I just wanted to ask, I know that the year that I showed up for the memorial was the first time you had been back. How do you feel now after a few years later? Are you handling everything a little bit better now that you've gotten back in touch with everyone, I guess, is what I'm asking.
You know, Charlene, it might be easier if everybody calls me Kat.
Yeah.
Because Catherine has a big, big part in this, and I don't want to take anything away from that. And a lot of the people that I knew at Mount Carmel knew me as Kathy, and I since have gotten tired of that, and it's just easier. Just call me Kat, and then we'll know if you're talking to me or Catherine. So yeah, Charlene, when I came back, the year I met you, it was the first year I'd been back, and my son came back the following year. But I think meeting you, Matt, just everybody that has, okay, Eddie, you too, that has really played an immense part in making me feel like not just a survivor, because Clive and everyone that I knew at Mount Carmel, we are a tight knit of survivors, yes. But I don't feel like just a survivor. I feel like a liver.
Yeah.
I feel like I live now and enjoy life because of people who love me and everyone else that either lived or died on April 19th or prior to that. But I feel like such a part of a bigger community now. And Charlene, I think you're probably one of the first people to make me feel that way.
Oh, that is so good to hear. It was so good to see you, and I knew you would just be embraced and loved, and I just tried to convince you that you just made the absolute right choice, and I'm so glad you're happier for it.
I want to say though that even from day one, when I went through a trial and jail time, the person who has been with me through all of it is Starla. And I don't think that anyone has helped me and loved me when I felt like I couldn't be loved more than Starla. So I thank her for being the loving, caring, kind person that she's always been, and for sticking with us, because now I'm part of something bigger and better than a group of survivors who lived and died for what they believed in and would do it all over again if asked. If David Koresh came to me right now and asked me to do it all over again for God, yes, we would. Every single one of us would do it all over again, knowing exactly what we would lose, because it was right for us. I don't think it was right for everybody. It was right for us. But now things are different, and we are living the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, real quick, I want to kind of dovetail on that. Charlene, I don't know if you remember telling me this when we met at that first memorial. As I said, it was my first time coming. And you said, once you come, these people will be like your family. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I've gotten obviously very close with Clive and Heather and you know, and David, and it, you know, and we talk about it because they're actually probably more like my family than my biological family, just how close we become.
I feel the same way. I do. I feel the same way. It's a very special bond. They're the nicest, most giving, loving, caring, funny people I've ever met in my entire life. And I cherish them in my heart so deeply, and I want nothing but the best for them. And I'm so excited about this Netflix thing. David, You nailed exactly what needed to happen in exactly the right moment, honest to God.
Yeah.
And you trusted in someone to deliver that message truthfully instead of lying to you, having you all participate, and it being another kid piece. So thank you, David, so very much.
A huge thank you to the Dowdles, John and Drew, for doing it, for reading the book and deciding that this is the movie that had to be made. These are the guys that, when they heard that somebody spilled hot coffee on them from McDonald's and there was a lawsuit, instead of being angry with a person suing McDonald's for spilling coffee on themselves, they wanted to find out why that really happened. And it turns out there is a story there. Same thing with Waco. They found the story by accident. They read it. They said, "We got to make this a series. This is the story to work on." And I just, everything came together. I feel like I had little to do with it, honestly. It just, anytime I've ever tried to get anything done under my power, it fails miserably. But all of a sudden, when I don't believe that anything's going to happen, the truth's going to come out, or it's just meant to be lost in history, all of a sudden God says, "No, there's different plans, buddy." So all that work that you did 25 years ago or 23 years ago doing the book, and now here it is. And people are going to know this story, or at least another side of the story. There's many, many sides of this story. Like I tell people today, every person that knew David or met David or had an experience with David has a different story.
Right.
Alfada has a different story than I do. Kathy Shona has a different story from mine. So does Clive Doyle. Clive Doyle and I were in the same area for a good deal of the siege, and yet he still has details that I didn't see or I didn't witness. So there's many, many stories here. Mine is just one little tale that it's all luck. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever, and I just feel honored, proud to be a part of it.
That's the brilliant part about all of you guys coming together every year, is that I will be sitting at a table and there is 5 or 6 different perspectives of the exact same moment within the siege or during the fire. And you're all learning, like you said, things that you had never even known before because you haven't had these conversations in this amount of detail. And so it's fascinating, honestly. I think you're going to all learn more and more as the years go by when you didn't know that there was much more to learn. It's really important to keep this going, I think, and these lines of communications. And as time passes, more people will come back and you're going to get their perspective of what happened as well. So it's good. It's really great to see Heather as well, and all of them, Kevin. It's really great because we're getting perspectives, of course, from them and maybe helping, I hope, them heal along the way as well.
David, this is Dana. I just wanted to tell you that it was your book that really opened my eyes to what was going on in there. And I had always suspected where I would be and where my boys would have been, and now I know. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming back.
I'll be a little more hard to get rid of now. I have a book to finish. Ugh.
Jeff Bowers has his hand up.
Hey, everybody. Just want to say thanks for letting me be a part of this. I started reading into the story about 5-7 years back. And of course, like anybody else, I had a lot of questions. And of course, from an outside perspective, something seemed a little off. And then, of course, doing more research, you see what the truth really is. And so, of course, I had a lot of questions. And David Thibodeau has been excellent on answering questions, hard, easy. And I just want to say thank you, David, for that. And it's an honor to be here to hear all the stories, especially Mr. Clive Doyle. You don't know me, but I've read a lot about you, and you're an excellent man, I gotta say. So sorry for the rambling. I just wanted to say my message.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
I wanted to say there's an excellent way for people to keep in touch is through Kevin Jones's website. That's the Mount Carmel Massacre Survivors, I believe. Somebody will correct me, perhaps.
Branch Davidian survivors.
Yeah, it's a Facebook group.
Yeah, it's a Facebook group, and people are welcome as long as they're courteous and helpful and not overly political. It's a group mostly for survivors to talk among themselves, but it's a good way to get your questions asked and answered by the original people.
Come on, Ron, let's be real. The standards aren't that high. I'm in it.
I confess.
Ron, I think we might have to talk and kick him out later.
Dana, can I say something?
Sure.
One of the things that I think would be good for the presentation for the slides is if we could expand the slides so that it would have more information on every person.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Matt, I think it might be a good idea if you sent the slides out for the survivors to try to add any additional information we have on those people.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's do that, and then for next year we'll have an expanded, a more information-filled slide presentation.
That would be good.
Kathy, may I ask you a question? Kathy Wessinger. Is it going to be possible to all the people that are on this call, can we, is there a list of emails or something we can get from everyone so we can put them on, maybe have a list of all the people that care about this and maybe do some updates and make sure that they're invited next year? And
yeah, I mean, not everyone got the link through the email address that I set up just to send the link out, but I think you know the other people, so I think we can put it together. And people are making really nice comments on the chat. I'm watching the comment, and I think you all will really appreciate seeing those. So I think when this is over, I'll be able to download a file of the chat, and then
that would be great.
I can send that to the survivors. I think you'll appreciate it a lot.
It would be great. Thank you.
I did invite David Hardy. It was a little bit late. I don't know if he's going to make it or not. He's a pretty busy guy, but we have a lot to thank as well for David Hardy. And
yes.
And again, to mention Michael McNulty, his obvious contributions and the sadness that he has passed as well.
Yeah. And Ron Engelman for all that he did early on. I'd like to
yeah.
Right.
And
William Gazette.
Dick, I know at the 25th, we were able to get him to come, if you recall, but he seemed like he was in frail health. I haven't kept up with him, I'm ashamed to say, but maybe some of you have, but he's certainly been one of our great friends over the years.
Dick Revis?
Yes.
Yeah, and actually I didn't get in touch with Dick. I should have, but I'll try to follow up with him. And I see that people who want to be on the shared email list, they're posting their email addresses in the chat. So that's good. So you all, the rest of you, if you want to be on that list, you can put your email addresses in there.
Could I mention something else?
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know. We're just finishing, so anybody can, kind of like new business or something. Stuart Wright and Catherine Wessinger, not Kat, but Catherine, and Philip Arnold and I gathered at Rice University last year and did, hours and hours of recording. I mean, probably 12, 15, 16 hours. Phil has now edited it, and it's divided into topics, actually. And I know Stuart is a great friend as well. I think you all know that. I don't know if he was not able to be here or what, but anyway, when Phil when he's ready, that can be released as well. And I think it'll go well with the Netflix series being released, and we'll figure out a platform for that. But I think Phil's idea is to release it in several forms, like the long form for people that want to really dig deeply. But we go into all the major topics with the four, I guess we call ourselves the four academics who have worked for 27 years now to shed more light on what really went on at Waco from the academy point of view, and also publishing David's manuscript and presenting it at scholarly conferences and so forth. So I'm talking about David Koresh's manuscript. So just wanted to mention that because that's something else that I think is, Phil funded it and spent a lot of money on it and hired. This is a professional studio. We didn't just all get together with an iPhone somewhere. It was done at a professional film studio. Very well done, beautiful lighting and taped well. And it's broadcast quality. That's what we wanted.
That's
So we'll
good.
also talk about getting it on different outlets. I haven't seen it, and I don't think Catherine, none of us have seen the finished product, but didn't he tell us recently, Catherine, that it's essentially finished, I think. So,
I thought it was close, but we haven't seen it yet. Yes.
so.
Holly Falk has her hand up.
Thank you. I wanted to go back a little bit, as they say on Zoom, circle back and just say, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this memorial, to hear the stories. I feel very privileged for that, and thank you. And I also wanted to speak in behalf of a few of my students who've actually been able to participate in the Facebook group. It was absolutely wonderful. My students found the group, David, before I even knew it existed, and you were so generous in your communication to them last spring. And I'm very appreciative to everybody in this community for the interest you have in terms of sharing your story with the public. It's life-changing, I think, especially for young people, both to learn a different perspective about their country that they haven't necessarily learned, and to realize that there's a community of people on the other side of a very misunderstood media story. And I saw the effect there. I think we're living in a very dark time for how religious dissenters are understood in our society. And so I think giving students, especially the opportunity to have some type of real tangible connection is very, very important in terms of exposing them to alternative points of view and increasing tolerance in the world. So thank you very, very much. And I hope I can participate again next year.
Thanks, Holly.
That was beautiful. Thank you for that perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I can't roll back. I've tried. Goodness.
Mary Winborn, did you want to say something again?
Well, I'm sorry. I think I'm hitting the wrong buttons.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. I do believe I am. I don't think you can see me because I didn't get set up. But once again, we all need to calm down, and that includes me, about this whole COVID-19 thing. And everybody really needs to take care of themselves. Don't forget, and take your hand sanitizer in your pocket and sanitize your hands before you get back in your car. And just remember those things. You can't forget them, okay? Sorry.
Hi, David.
I have a question for Clive. We were talking about Mike McNulty, and I remember you telling me that he was slated to come and present some new information just before he died. I was wondering if that information ever got out, or if you ever found out what it was.
That's a good question. Mike McNulty called me probably a week or so before he died, and the information he started to tell me was that he'd been working on his second DVD or documentary. He was going to cut out some of the stuff he had in it, but he had a whole lot of new stuff he wanted to add to it. And of course, we were interested in that. Then we found out that he passed away. I contacted his family by letter and asked them, you know, was there any material that we could acquire, any of this new stuff? And I never got a response. So I don't know whether it's lost or whether he had other backers and stuff that got a hold of it. I don't know.
The last time I spoke to him, he said that they were making a full feature length movie, a big production, and asked me to build the website for it, but I just didn't have the capabilities at the time. I do wonder what happened to all of that information. If we can make it a point to sort of seek that out again.
Well, the thing with Mike McNulty was that he used to get financial backing from other people. And when he made Rules of Engagement, it ended up where the financial claimed ownership of the finished product. And they basically took it away from him. And I think the same thing happened with maybe the second and third videos that he made. And so I don't know who he was working with on this new stuff, whether he's just trying to do it himself or whether he had a financial backing and they might have got it. But I wrote to his widow and she never, you know, got back to me.
So I did want to mention that his Facebook page is still active. If maybe we could reach out through that. Maybe Ron can do that for you, Clive, or something. Right, because I think his daughter was posting on there, you know, up until a little bit after he passed away. So maybe we can still get a hold of them.
Is it under his name?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, we've recently been in touch with Dudley Goff, a former Davidian, and he had done some work with Jeremiah Films, the people that did the Clinton Chronicles.
Are they?
There's a lot of unused or unreleased interview footage that's squirreled away somewhere in Washington and Oregon. And we can maybe try to work to see some of that also.
He's the individual that's in, there's clips of him in Rules of Engagement in the black and white footage, correct?
Right, he's
I can also add that Dudley came down to Houston and was, I can't believe I forgot this, Catherine. Dudley was also part of, not all the time with the four academics, but he was also, Phil flew him in from, I think he's in Oregon, I believe. And
it's in Southern California right now.
Yeah, so he came and stayed with us for 3 days. And we just talked, you could imagine us sitting around and just talking till 2 and 3 in the morning. And of course, he knew particularly the whole Hadif period, the Roden period, you know, going back to even, I guess, before Clyde, but so it was very helpful to us. And the main thing he pointed out is that he had kind of hid his background for all these years because he just felt almost like embarrassed that he'd been part of some, this was not so much the Koresh thing, but the failed disappointment in 1959 when he was turned to really as sort of a spokesperson and, you know, was doing the broadcast and everything. And he felt like he had, you know, led people astray. But after continued to think about it, and he was very much of a mood of wanting to reconcile himself and be as, you know, be more public and so forth. So you will hear him on this this production of Arnold does include Dudley, and I can't believe I forgot that, but I'm glad one of you mentioned him.
He actually make a presentation of some physical materials to you?
He did. He brought lots of things with him, whole suitcases full, and they're now with Phil Arnold at Reunion Institute. Magazines, the old bulletins, all kinds of stuff, the tracks that used to be pointed. So Arnold has those, and they can either be included in some kind of archive at Baylor or Rice, or for now, because Phil Arnold runs Reunion Institute, which is a nonprofit institute or nonprofit that would be applicable to this kind of need. I would think Phil would hold onto it for a while. So if any of you wanted to know about this material or look at it, you could email Phil, and he could even scan things and so forth. He mainly also brought photos that were just unbelievable, and slides going back to the 50s.
Wow.
Like on the day of the Great Disappointment, let's call it, not to speak of Ellen G. White, but of 1959. He had hundreds of slides of the cars and all the people gathered, and he had some recordings of him speaking. He had a kind of a Garner Ted Armstrong voice, if you remember, very booming, amazing voice. It reminded me of that kind of radio period when these different ministers would get on the radio and just boom out an amazing message. So Dudley's in, I think he's 90, either 89 or 90. Good enough health, but yes, we did get some materials. I don't have to do with anything about 93 or even the period of David's teaching. It's mostly just from the period before, the 50s primarily.
By the way,
And so physical items as well. Like I have a trunk full of stuff. Burned shoes that I would take when I would do talks and show people, something physical, tangible. Old receipts from when they would pay, like 4 cents for eggs, and they had their own money printed out, the Mount Carmel paper money. I have that as well. Paper coins that they would trade, for eggs. So I have a lot of stuff I would just hate to get lost to the winds, but I don't know who to trust, honestly. So it sounds like this is a good idea, I guess.
It might be worth talking to them and asking if they have an interest in those types of materials and see.
Right.
They have some of the things that Clive helped print in the 70s and 80s. They have some things of that nature. So.
Wow. So they might be. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Did we ever get Paul back?
I think Paul's here. He seems to have, or he was here. Let me see if he's gone. I think he must have, the microphone in his laptop must be turned off or something, and I don't see him now.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay. Probably had to go to work.
It was wonderful meeting him. What a great guy he is, honestly. That is somebody who was missing from the equation for quite a while, so it's good to hang out with him. Good man.
Hey, just throwing it out there. This is Eddie. Anything that you guys have that's electronic, I'm helping David Thibodeau building a website, and part of that website was going to be a library. So anything that y'all can donate that's electronic would be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
I'll let David Hardy know. He has a lot.
Speaking electronic data or electronic equipment?
Electronic documents,
Yes.
data, audio. Yeah, like if anyone's got recordings from the siege, any kind of documents. We got a good chunk from Stuart. David Stewart.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
I was able to get the website wacosurvivor.com. Yeah, can you plug? So I'm in the process of getting that together, and I'm learning how to create a website, which is going amazingly slow. And I'm so old and so trying to just watch YouTube videos to guide me through this, and extremely frustrated about it. So if there's anyone out there that's a good website editor that would like to maybe offer services to help me out, I'd love to talk to you. Please get in touch, because
Hey, David.
Dave, if you need anything, let me know.
all right, great, Ed. Let's get together on that. It's killing me.
Oh, no.
I spent about 6 hours yesterday. I was ready to pull my hair out, but still here, fortunately.
You're not alone. Everybody who starts those, it's always an uphill learning curve. So you're not alone.
Good. So WacoSurvivor.com. It'll be.
Okay, good.
Heather, I wanted to tell your kids hi.
They're not here with me, but they'll be very happy to hear that.
Okay.
Steve, have you got a word?
Yes.
Is that the only word?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a degree in advertising and graphic design. I build websites for a living. Some of the work I do here in Waco, I manage websites for local prosthetics company and their social media, so I can help with that kind of stuff. That includes digitizing stuff from one form of media to another, as well as building the websites. I'll get with you later, David, help you with that.
Can't beat that offer.
I'd like to get back to something I started a while ago. Dudley Goff called me a little over a week ago, and in the process of talking to him, he mentioned that Pat Matriciano had just died. Pat Matriciano was involved in the Clinton Chronicles that came out many years ago, and he also came to Waco with Dudley. They were filming on behalf of making a documentary called Bullets Over Waco, which never got past the initial stages apparently because, but anyway, he's just died from what I hear, and I'm wondering how much material he's got that's kind of floating around out there, or whether, you know, it's been destroyed. I don't, maybe if somebody can get a hold of Dudley, he can look into that. There's millions of miles of recordings from people all over the world that, you know, did interviews, came and filmed stuff, collected things. A lot of it's, you know, somebody dies, you don't know what happens to it. You know, Weiler used to tape everything and put stuff out, but her husband gave me all of her stuff, her tapes and stuff, and I am giving them to Mike Hansen, yeah, down in East Texas. So if you don't have good storage facilities, a lot of things you've got are not going to hold up. I've got storage sheds out near Mount Carmel, and the spiders and mud daubers and everything are getting into them and probably ruining a lot of stuff that I used to have, especially if it's paper, you know.
Silverfish are the worst.
So Willa passed away.
Willa died maybe a year and a half ago.
Longer than that.
It was about
That's
2 years ago.
Very sorry to hear that. Were you going to say something, Tim?
At the end, she had multiple melanoma. We saw her a few weeks before she passed.
That's
good. In good spirits. and went back to Burleson where she lived, and died very shortly thereafter.
Does anyone hear from Carol Moore anymore?
Carol Moore, way back in probably around 2000, contacted me and said that she'd been championing us for several years, but she had other projects that she wanted to take up, and so she gave me all her books.
Oh, good.
Well, all that she had on hand anyway. There was 40 or 50 boxes of them, and all I had to do was pay the shipping. And most of that's gone to Eddie now, so I don't know how many of them are still available. But this is what happens. Somebody dies, or somebody focuses their attention in a different direction, and then lots of stuff gets lost.
Right.
Destroyed, you know.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I donated them to Mount Carmel when they were trying to rebuild when Heather was living out there.
Right.
The books.
That's the end of the Will Massacre books.
Your audio cut out.
I think there might be a couple boxes still there. Well, I think was there a couple boxes? There might be a couple boxes still left out there.
Yeah, if they're not
Last time I
paid
noticed it, there was like 3 or 4.
So, yeah, 3 or 4. But yeah, when I made the donation, everything was kind of humming along and everything was going good. And a good thing came out of it. I mean, the church got the plumbing redone out of it. So.
Well, if anyone has, what we call primary source materials, but even secondary like news clippings, but any sorts of documents that relate to this, it is good to, going back to the discussion we had earlier about archives, it is good to start thinking about putting those in an archive. For instance, I know, Bonnie Haldeman had letters and photos, and then when her house caught on fire, all that burned up, right? So it's just good to be thinking about that. And Matt's, he's a librarian. He's very interested in the archival question, and he can help out with that as you consider, placing things in an archive. And I'll be happy to talk to you as well. And I saw that Mary Winborn mentioned something about having videos of the FBI press conferences. I've been looking for those. Yeah. I would really like to have video or digitized video of the FBI press briefings, because I want. Oh, Heather, you've got that? Because I think that's something that needs to be studied. So if anybody has any sort of copy of the press briefings, I'd love to receive those, because if I get enough, I'd like to write a paper on those. Okay.
Yeah, that does need to be studied. That needs to be pursued. I noticed Mary Winborn had a comment there that she had a lot of that stuff recorded and let them to Gary Hunt and never received those tapes back. So I don't know if Gary Hunt's still around, if anyone can reach out to him maybe and try to get those back. Yeah. I'm sure there's other ways we can get the press conferences too. There's gotta be. I'll talk to I have a guy, a very good friend of mine, Ryan Azevedo, that's been helping work on a documentary. And he's probably able to get a lot of that stuff, being a documentary filmmaker. So I'll check in on that angle, but I would love to get those press conferences. If we were to go back through the timeline of there's something like 55,000, 50,000, 30,000, I'm exaggerating, 30,000 pages of transcripts between David Koresh and the negotiators. Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the things that I want to do in a future documentary is to go through those transcripts and show what was actually happening behind the scenes, and then show on the same day or the day following what the FBI was saying during the press conferences.
Exactly.
Because on our perspective, they were two totally different things. Yes. Just about every day. We got to the point where we were laughing at the press conferences because they were so ridiculous. They were so over the top and outlandish that we were offended. And like I said, it was a joke to us at the point at how much they were lying to the people and how much they were lying to America and how they got away with it. And how they basically manufactured consent to destroy the Mount Carmel community. So by the time the place burned, everyone was sick of it. And it's just like Bill Clinton said, if a bunch of religious fanatics want to kill themselves, what can the federal government do about it?
Exactly.
Their statement for old Bill to have made there. But anyway, that should definitely be pursued.
So let's be in touch about that, because that's going to be an important study. I also want to see what the FBI agents were saying in the press briefings as they were planning the final assault, and particularly as they were getting ready to implement the final assault. So if anybody has video of the press briefings or transcripts, but I'd like to see the video, you know, that would be great.
I would like to get a hold of the transcripts that they did with us when we were 11.
Mm-hmm.
Basically sat down and told us what we were to say, how we were going to say it. And then when I would say something, they would tell me, okay, let's stop and let's go over this again. I thought it was coming from me, not from what they wanted me to tell me. I would like to get a hold of those.
Is that from the Methodist home?
No, they didn't do it at the Methodist home. They did it at a motel in Belmead.
And it was being filmed too, right? You're saying
it was being filmed, it was being recorded, and I had a group of FBI agents around me at a table, and they kept stopping it, and they're like, we need to know everything in your life. We need to know everything. Well, why did you stutter? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know what to say. Well, what lie are you trying to come up with? Like, I remember that interview. I remember it. It was horrible. They made me cry. And I actually left the room. And then they brought me back in.
Honestly, that sounds like something you would only be able to get through a Freedom of Information Act request.
Yeah.
I bet.
I think the press conferences, the big public ones at every day, you could possibly get through Freedom of Information.
Is that
I don't know who's tried to do that, and that would be better quality, official recordings. Thibodeau's idea is brilliant. Mm-hmm. Both of these ideas, though, of the children's voices. but Thibodeau's idea about weaving these together, because clearly the people on the inside listening are losing trust because they're saying, wait, that wasn't what was said last night, or that wasn't what was agreed to, or that wasn't. And so then when people today say, well, why didn't they just, trust them and come out and surrender? Because, clearly good faith on both sides. But if you were hearing, it's only the people inside that were hearing both sides. Think about it. Only the people inside.
Right.
They could hear both. And then they would go, no way. In others, are basically constantly lying. And that could be, as you said, that could be documented.
I was excited.
Well, I know David Hardy has a lot of information that shows like the logs of the agents, and then you've got video that's at around the same time. And so a similar idea to what you're talking about. I think Dave is going to be a big. And honestly, he's not getting any younger either. So we need to find out where we can get David's information too before we leave the other one.
And if you see in the video when they go to get out of the cattle trailer, there was a couple of men that went to the front, 2 or 3, and there was a couple of men that went to the back. Those are the ones that shot the dogs. The other ones shot my grandfather.
Right. He was supposed
really
to
glad to see every one of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're glad to see you.
I have a question I just looked on Netflix under Waco miniseries and it wouldn't come up. Is there another name it's called?
Just search Waco. Just search Waco. That's it.
I think it's just called Waco.
Yeah, it's definitely there because people have written me today that they're watching it. So
okay.
When you go to Netflix, it's the main page now. Maybe not today, but it was last night. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've been keeping up with that too. I keep hoping it's going to be the top 10 of that day or whatever.
And you can also purchase Waco on Amazon Prime as well and keep it saved, which I have done, and watch the truth whenever you need. So Amazon Prime is another great resource for it.
And
They actually have it on YouTube as
We got,
well.
hold on, we got someone with their hand up. Stephen Lane has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you guys do have a chance to just even if you don't watch it on Netflix, just click on it. It will keep it trending in the top 10, and all that data will be collected, and it'll just keep trending on the internet, and that way more people are going to keep hearing this story.
That's a good point.
That's right.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't have Netflix or doesn't have Prime, because Prime is expensive, I think it's $80 or $100 a year for Prime. You can still go onto Amazon and purchase the miniseries. You can get it in standard definition, I think, for $9 or $10, all the series, and it lives on your digital account. That's one way to do it. You don't need Prime.
It's on iTunes too for if you're an iOS user or Apple.
Oh, okay.
Also on YouTube as well. I actually purchased it on YouTube before I even knew it was on Amazon. So I think it's like $10.99 on YouTube, and then you can keep it forever as well on that.
And there's screener DVDs on eBay that people sell once in a while, so you can actually have it on disc. That's how I have it.
Someone just mentioned it's number 9 in the country today, David.
Let's all go click on it a few times.
See what happens.
And Charlene, I think it would be a good idea to take pictures of the things that you have too. The items that you have, if you just even had a photographic record of what you had, that's a form of a copy.
I used to have it on my website, but I lost the domain and all that years ago. So
Yeah.
I'll pull those up and send those off to you, I guess, would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Or maybe take new pictures, because smartphones have higher resolution these days and all that.
That's true.
I just Googled American subscribers on Netflix, just American only, and it was 65 million people in America subscribed to it. So if that's number 9, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. And because of the shutdown, everybody's binging on things. So
Yes. We have an unprecedented amount of people and audience, and we've got to push this.
Yeah, if you can, those of you who use social media, what I did this morning, I did a blog post, but that's a full thing with links. But what I'm also doing, because so many have Netflix, even though it's available with these other platforms, is I just type a few words like "be sure and see this," must see or whatever, and then the URL to the Netflix, which is on my website if you have trouble finding it, jamestabor.com. And so I put it, on everywhere, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it 4 or 5 times again over the next few days. Just keep doing it. Because different, how social media is, everybody doesn't see everything, even if you post it. And then the next time around, they might, especially Facebook, what appears in your newsfeed is so selective. So I think it's really an opportunity to tell a story. And like I was saying in my first recording here, when you said the sound was garbled, that scene that's in the 3rd or 2nd episode, they show the siege, the February 28th thing, they show it several times, like clips, but then they finally do a full thing. I think it's in the 3rd episode, and some of you might have heard me say this before, but it reminded me on a mini scale to the opening scenes of Saving Private Ryan with the D-Day landing, in that sense that you're just terrified to watch it.
Yeah.
The sounds of the bullets, people diving, glass shattering, kids yelling, people crawling. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I was just so knocked out by it. I think I had to stop the TV for a minute and just, So I think it's going to grip the country, folks. I think it has the potential to grip the country.
Absolutely.
You Bigger than Tiger King?
Who knows, David? But they've all seen Tiger. They're exhausted now, so they'll go to something new.
Yeah, Steve Lane has had his hand up for a long time. Steve, can you?
Yeah, first of all, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just a quick thing, sort of my involvement, that chapel behind David there, I helped build that. I noticed Clive had stepped away. There was a time, I think it was about the mid-90s, where I met Clive, and I told him if they ever decided to rebuild out there, I wanted to be a part of it. I have a construction background, and I lived west of Austin at that time. And then I think it was McNulty or whoever it was that discovered the spent flashbang grenades in the the warehouse of evidence, and I felt like at that time, and many of us did, that would be the perfect time to start an initiative to get something built out there. And then that's when a bunch of us started coming up from Austin on weekends and building. So that's sort of where, but I wanted to share with you a story that hopefully will encourage folks. So I didn't start off as being somebody that was, I wouldn't necessarily say supportive at all. I was a person who, when it first happened, the siege, I was sort of a typical American. I think I tried to watch some TV news and tried to stay involved with things and understand things that were going on around me. And when I watched all that on TV, and I want to emphasize before anybody hates on me, I was only getting that view of it. I just thought, well, man, why didn't they come out? They should have just, you do what the police tell you to do, and just that sort of thing, right? Well, fast forward a few years, and I had met Mike Hansen, who some of you know, and Alex Jones. I had gotten to be friends with Alex, and he and I did some Access TV together in Austin. And I don't remember where it was at, but I met some of the survivors. I know Clive was one, Sheila Martin was another, Catherine Madison, of course. And I was sort of immediately struck by, it was Mike that introduced me, and I was sort of immediately struck by just sort of how normal everybody was, right? Because I had only been given, my perception at that time prior to that was only what I'd been told through the mainstream media. And so that created some doubt in my mind. And then, so, this sort of just kept progressing over time. And I started learning more about what happened at Waco, not just what I'd been told by the media. And then I remember at one point I was struck, I had met of all things, head of the SWAT team in Austin. And he was friends with a guy named, let me think of his name here, who was head of ATF in Austin. And that one of those cattle trailers and trucks was dead. And I was speaking to this SWAT team guy, and I was just like, I would really love to hear what somebody like that had to say. And he said, if you want, I can arrange a lunch. And I said, sure. Now, keep in mind, at this point, I was definitely thinking really favorably towards the Davidians and the survivors and things like that. But I wouldn't say I was like squarely in that camp at just quite yet, but pretty darn close. So keep in mind, I was just a nobody construction guy doing Access TV, but I was fascinated by this. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And let me tell you something, that was the pivot point for me. That was the turning point for me, because the media had always taught me that the Davidians were these religious nuts, and that the police were coming and taking good care of everybody, and the FBI were the good guys and the ATF were the good guys. And when I came away from that meeting, I cannot emphasize this enough. Clive's heard this before, but he kept circling back to how he was a Baptist, and what was taking place in there was just wrong from a religious perspective. Mm-hmm. And it sort of blew me. It blew me away, because I came out of that meeting. I'll never forget it. I called my dad on the phone, because, it wasn't cell phones back then. And I called him on a payphone. And I said, Dad, man, I said, I've been told that Davidians are right or religious nuts, but I just met the real religious nut. This guy, he basically was almost justifying his involvement.
Well, Byron Sage he's told everybody in every interview
Yeah, well, so what I did
He
was
confessing his faith.
I didn't know how to wrap my head around all this at the time. So I thought one of the other things that struck me was I didn't feel like that for everything that we knew about the siege, I just didn't see anybody talking about, hey, what can we do to make sure nothing like that ever happens again? So I had actually arranged, it was a public meeting, it was an event somewhere in Austin. And Clive was there, and this was like the first time to get sort of people on stage in public and talking about not just their perspectives, but what could be done differently. And again, putting me sort of squarely aligned with what happened with the Davidians, and said we shouldn't do anything different. They should have just come. And I was blown away by just the lack of humility at all. And I don't know if that was genuine or if it was a defense mechanism for maybe some guilt or something. But I came away feeling it was genuine, that he felt no humility whatsoever. So then, so I say all that to share with you is that then when I came away from all this was I didn't take responsibility for what my government did back when the siege first happened, but I had an opportunity at that time to sort of take responsibility. Done. And so when I got the opportunity to help folks rebuild out at Mount Carmel, I jumped at the chance. I was proud to do it, happy to do it, and I'm just pleased that y'all have let me be a part of taking that responsibility where my government has yet to do it. And so I'm grateful for you guys to have the opportunity, and I'm just glad you guys have managed to stick this together. And I keep wanting to come every year, but I live in Tennessee, so this was a great opportunity for me to finally take a part of this, because I have never seen the finished chapel. I was only there when it was framing. I put trusses up, I built the stairs, some other stuff like that. So I really can't wait to get back sometime and sort of see the finished product.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Was it Rebecca Spalding had her hand up and I think we missed her? Rebecca, you still here?
Becky?
I'm here, but I took my hand down. So, I'm just listening.
Okay, so
I still can't get my video up. Every time I can, but then it just goes.
Rick Donaldson, would you like to say a word too?
No, he doesn't have the mic.
Hey, Rick, unmute your mic.
Wave to us, Rick.
We miss your greens.
I'm sure. I wish I was there.
Are you wearing your shirt today, Rick?
No, not that one. Not that one. Today's a farm day, man. I keep that one for special occasions and coming down and visiting.
Rick has an original memorial shirt, like from the first year.
Well, all I can do is say thank you, Rita Riddle, for making those available.
I just wanted to thank all of you who built that chapel for building it, because for the very first time I got to use a toilet when I was on that property.
Yeah, for the ladies, that's probably a very necessary thing.
I used to have to go a long way to go, if you catch my drift.
The outhouse. I remember the outhouse.
Up by the old dairy barn in the back.
Oh my.
Or a convenient bucket would do, but you would have to leave the room.
Yeah, right.
See, if the power to completely go out, this group of people would actually be able to get through it. Having done it, having volunteered to do it so many years ago.
Involuntarily volunteered, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Mary, how are you?
Good. Have you got on your hat?
No, not today. Like I said, it's a farm day here, and it's raining out. I don't want to get, I don't want to get my good clothes all wet and dirty,
I still have mine. I was the one that got the hats, so I still have mine in perfect condition.
Right?
Yeah.
Mine's well worn. So has anybody has anybody ever transcribed Ron Engelman's radio show?
Yes, we do have that. In fact, it's online. I'll send, if Catherine doesn't have it, I'll send her the link. But we do have that, yes.
Cool, because my mouth was on there on a regular basis. And
oh, that I don't know. I just know the one that Arnold and I did. We have, but
Yeah.
no, we do need. I think Catherine would know that. Whether I think we have them all. Yeah.
No, I have not seen. I do not have audio tapes of everything that Ron Engelman said about the case and during the siege. Of course, there is the famous audio tape about Phil and Arnold and James Tabor and their discussion on Engelman's show. So we've got that. And James, you're saying you've got a transcript of it. But Rick, if you have those recordings, that would be...
I wish I did. I wish I did. Who was it? Ken Fawcett was the one that was involved in that. Somebody earlier mentioned David Thibodeau moving the satellite dish. Well, it was Ken Fawcett that noticed that the satellite dish was there, and he said, when the communications had all been shut down, and on Ron Engelman's show,
right,
satellite dish. So that's when David finally figured out that he had access to the outside world still by moving that satellite dish. And I just think that's a very important part of this whole puzzle, is trying to cut somebody's communication off. They never did. They got close but never did, and that's why I say they had to come in and start the fire. The too much information was going to get out. And then did anybody ever find out exactly what happened to the front door? I know Ron and Ken and I were down there on that day that they were putting the chain link fence up around the place, and the front door was being loaded into the back of a pickup truck. Whose pickup truck was that? It was supposedly somebody associated with the Branch Davidians. I thought the door has never been found. Do you know anything more about that?
No.
In Toronto, we had one of the doors, but the other one with all the bullet holes was missing.
I don't think it would be a Davidian that would be able to have taken that door away. It was definitely someone from the government hiding that door because of the evidence that it held within the bullet holes.
According to Sam Nave, who's been gone a long time, the door went through a chipper shredder.
Wow. Well, I know the deputies had Ron and Ken and me detained, as it were, questioning us, trying to figure out who we were. We really had us a good time thwarting their efforts to get us to volunteer to go with them to the jail. But it was just amazing the amount of work that was being done to dismantle stuff and put the fence up at the same time before any real investigation got started. This whole thing just still boggles my mind.
Biggest crime scene.
But I'm glad. Do what? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the biggest crime scene in history, and they were destroying it as it was still burning.
Well, also the famous camera from across the road that supposedly malfunctioned and didn't record anything. I don't think.
Weren't there 3 of them?
We don't believe that. And
Right.
Also my experience with people over the years in situations like this is you might not release something, but you still have it. And so my guess is that videotape, that camera footage does exist, but when asked about it, the response says, oh, well, the camera didn't work. But I think the chances that the camera didn't work are so unlikely.
Well, I think they were saying 3 or 4 simultaneously ejected for the first few minutes of the raid.
Exactly.
And they couldn't duplicate that occurrence again with all of the experiments that they pulled afterwards.
This is Mary. Can I interject here?
Go ahead.
Okay, Rick, I know you remember Ron Engelman.
Right.
Do you remember the other angel that sounded in Dallas? Charlie Seraphim on KRLD.
Charlie who?
Seraphim. 2 angels sounded in Dallas. This is esoteric as hell. Engelman and Seraphim.
I don't remember.
On a different station, and I spoke over Charlie Seraphim's station. Said, do you have a mention or anything you want to say to the people in there? And the only thing I could say was, there's been a cop killed. You've got to get out of there. They're going to kill you. And that's recorded somewhere.
Yeah, I remember that name. I just don't remember why.
Yeah, so that's very esoteric about the 2 angels. But anyway.
I just looked him up. His name is Charlie Seraphin.
Yes.
Seraphin. But he's mentioned in Dick Revis's book.
Yes, yes.
Well, I've got to take off, you guys, and I really appreciate you, all of you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for
David,
joining us.
I'm going to call you later today. I don't know if you can talk. If you can't, just...
Chip, do you want to lead us out, or did anybody have anything else?
Can we have a little prayer?
That's good.
Our Father, our Mother, our family in heaven watching over us. This has been a day blessed by the Lord. Blessings for all of us who have heard these words. Let us be wise and humble. Let us stay safe in these troublous times. And let's see each other in person next year. Amen.
Amen. It's good to see you all. I love you all.
Love you, family.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure spending this time together. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you all so very much. Awesome. We'll see you later.
Thank you, David.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Love all of y'all, David.
Adios.
Maybe it won't be so long.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Love you all.
Take care, guys.